When we have these big cultural events that will bring in tons of people to the genre, we say, yeah, but not like that. Like maybe don't come into bluegrass that way.
Yeah, it's like, did you have to put gauges in your ears, son?
Did I actually say that? I'm thinking that's a deep fake, man. Some of you may have seen the video that clip was pulled from. Why do some people hate Billy Strings? So the conversation was kind of framed negatively, right, as to why so many people hate Billy Strings or seem to hate Billy Strings. But today, we're actually going to focus on Billy in a positive light, and I want to talk about why so many people love this guy. You know, it's easy for people that are inside of the bluegrass community to kind of throw shade on these new artists that are honestly really technically amazing. You can't argue with their music whatsoever, but they bring new people to the community that don't look like the old people in the community, right? And that's definitely the case with Billy. But the thing is, Billy's kind of like, I don't want to say a wolf in sheep's clothing, he's kind of the opposite of that, right? He's like a sheep in wolf's clothing. Because Billy is so steeped in the tradition of bluegrass flat picking. He always quotes that Doc Watson's music is one of the biggest influences, if not the biggest influence on his playing. And I think the fact that Billy is tied to that deep tradition of flat picking really makes sense for why he's such a virtuosic artist and why so many new people really appreciate Billy for who he is. A lot of those people don't know who Doc Watson is, that love Billy Strings and fall in love with his music, but they're impressed by that style of guitar playing because it's so technical, it's so precise, it's so fast. So today, we're going to dive headfirst into what does make Billy Strings such a technical virtuoso on the guitar, and it's definitely tied to those roots and traditions that I was talking about earlier. We're going to really dive into some of the technical aspects and things in the right hand that I think you can start to incorporate into your playing if you're impressed by Billy Strings and you want to play more like him. It goes without saying that there are so many examples of Billy's playing that we could analyze to showcase his technical prowess on the instrument. So there's definitely something that I notice in Billy's technique every time I watch these clips where he's playing at blistering tempos. It has to do with his right hand, and it's called Upstroke Escape Picking. Now you might be asking yourself, what is Upstroke Escape Picking, Hayes? And for the rest of this video, by the way, that is such a mouthful to say, I'm going to call it USX. And guess what? That term was actually given to us by one of the greatest guitar YouTubers out there, Troy Grady. He's got a website called Cracking the Code, and Troy has really dove headfirst into analyzing the right hands of some of the greatest guitar players out there to give us this terminology and system to attack speed playing on the guitar. So when I watch Billy's playing, he falls right into this USX camp that I see Troy talking about on his channel all the time. So what is upstroke escape picking? Troy developed this term to describe right hand motion where downstrokes are trapped between two adjacent strings, but upstrokes are free of the strings and allow you to shift to a different string. Now I know that sounds like a lot, but let me demonstrate it here for you. So upstroke escape picking involves this kind of supinated right hand where we kind of point our pinky toward the top of the guitar, and you can see that my downstroke is trapped between the strings, but when I come through an upstroke, my pick is free of the strings, and if I wanted to, I could keep playing on that string, or after each upstroke, my hand is free of the strings so it can shift to a different string. So if that still sounds confusing to you, let's look at Billy putting this to use in the infamous R Vinyl session of Dust in a Baggie.
20 long years for some dust in a baggie.
So the first thing that you notice is Billy's right hand is actually completely covered by the microphone when he launches into this lick. But I've seen him use this motion so many times before, and I can tell from the angle of his wrist and the way that he's moving his arm that he is definitely using USX picking in this example. So if we look at the tab of this, you can see that the first two measures are just kind of this chromatic descending phrase, kind of like in G Mixolydian, right? Now, for a lot of us, our minds are already blown, right? We could spend the next year kind of unpacking that lick. But with USX right-hand motion, I think it's going to make it a lot easier for you. Let me show you that lick again, but with a better right-hand angle, so you can see exactly how USX comes into this. So if you notice, as I'm picking, my pick is caught between two strings after all downstrokes, but the upstrokes are free of the strings, allowing me to shift to another string. Now, if you've seen Marcel's lesson on this version of Dust in a Baggie and have run through this tab but can't quite nail that opening lick, then this USX motion is definitely something you should check out. I know in my own personal playing, in the last 2 years, it's really unlocked speed playing in general for me, so you should definitely give this one a try. Due to the nature of the mechanics of USX picking, there are some kind of parameters that we need to keep in mind for when to employ this and how we can employ it to achieve clean, fast lines. So because we get caught between two strings on downstrokes, that means we need to be able to shift to another string after passages with upstrokes. Now, if we think about that, to get to an upstroke, that means we have to play 2 notes or an even number of notes. So USX picking is often employed in lines that are even groupings on a string. Or another way to phrase that is 2, 4, 6, 8 notes on a single string, starting with a downstroke on a downbeat, just like this lick that Billy played. If we look at the lick here on the screen, we can see that we play 4 notes per string and then shift down to the next string after each 4-note grouping. So now that we know the mechanics behind some of Billy's speed, how do we actually apply this to our own playing outside the context of this lick? Well, because there are so many good clues in this lick, let's actually use this in the context of a different song to see if we can get it to work first. Before we kind of create our own versions of these things, it's really great to be able to use the raw material given to us by these great artists and see if we can plug it in somewhere else. So for now, I'm going to pull up a version of White House Blues and show you a couple places that I would put Upstroke Escape Picking with this lick into the solo. So we're going to kind of start out just the way that Billy plays this lick. I'm going to play 2 pickup notes into some improvisation over the chord changes to White House Blues, and then I'm going to see if I can throw that lick into the middle of the solo, just to put it into a spot that's a little different from how Billy used this lick. So you can see I managed to squeeze that lick into the changes to White House Blues on somewhat of an improvised solo there. Now you may be wondering, okay Hayes, that's really cool, you can play that fast, but how do I put this into my own playing? Step 1, work out patterns that you know are USX picking so that you can incorporate those into your playing as licks or standard vocabulary. This lick that's at the first few measures of Dust in a Baggie here is perfect material for that. But like I said, if you start on a downstroke on a downbeat and play any 4-note phrase that ascends or descends the strings, then you're safe. So work out a couple of those patterns and then try to fit them into solos or chord structures that you're already really comfortable with. The reason I chose White House Blues is because I know the melody to that tune really well, so I can pull off a fast, hot lick like Billy uses here, and then fill out the rest of the break with pillar tones or the melody notes from the original tune. I think that's a great way to kind of incorporate these new things into solos, and it could be a very useful tool for you so you don't feel too overwhelmed by this process of speed picking. So one thing that I might suggest is getting your guitar and practicing these patterns on one string only, but see if you can go as fast as you can with as little motion and tension in the right hand as possible. One thing that I really noticed is that my wrist wasn't able to move side to side so much this way for the USX picking, but I ended up having to use a lot of this doorknob turning motion, or kind of jiggling motion that comes really from the entire top bone of your wrist here. So just to give you an example of that, here's what it looks like. One last thing you might want to check out too is on all of your downstrokes, do a rest stroke. I found that this is really good to kind of bounce off of that string that's just below the one you picked through to get into that upstroke. It allows you to go through the string with a little more force and weight in that wrist and then bounce back so you can get a really strong kind of tremolo pattern if you're trying to practice that speed picking on only one string. Okay, my friends, there you have it. The secret to Billy Strings' speed playing. Obviously, I couldn't cover everything that makes him a great fast guitar player in today's video, but I think if you experiment with this USX picking and that lick from Dust in a Baggie, you're gonna gain kind of a window into how Billy is able to pull off these blazing fast tempos. If you haven't had a chance, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button below if you enjoyed today's video. And if you want to support the channel and get access to things like PDFs of all the tab for our exercises, backing tracks, play-alongs, and monthly live Zoom calls with yours truly, go ahead and check out the link below in the description to the Guitar Club. Okay, my friend, don't go anywhere though. We've got some more great videos queued up for you right here.